Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Chess Advanced. And this game was played in 1957, Moscow, Russia. And definitely, this game is one of the best games ever. And definitely, you're going to enjoy it because this game was played by two former world champions. With the white pieces, we have Mikhail Tal, and with the black pieces, we have Tigran Petrosian. So definitely, this is going to be the best games that you'll ever see. So without further ado, about this, I hope you are too. And here, without further ado, let's start with this game. Here, Tal starts with e4, and now we have e6 by Petrosian, and we have just d4 and d5 going for the French defense, normal variation. We have knight to c3 and just going for this bishop to b4, just going for this maneuver variation. Then we have just e5, but now just c5, and now we have a3, trying to push the bishop back, but obviously the bishop doesn't go back, the bishop just trades, and you will have with a mr pawn structure. Here just bishop caps on c3 was played, b captures, and now just this knight to e7, just preparing castles. You have eliminated the bishop, you've traded for a knight, and now you just happily castle, develop those pieces, and get the bishop into the game, connect the rooks, and you'll have a great game. Here, queen to g4 was played immediately, striking. If black does not castle in this move, it's going to be an issue. And castles is not a bad move because even if you think that this is going to be troublesome, you always have this move. So, this might come into the game, but, it just doesn't do anything. And knight to f5 was played, but now just bishop to d3. And now here h5 was played, just pushing the queen back, but just queen back to h3. And now this queen is going to be a thorn in black side. Here c caps on d4, but now just knight to f4. And now here this knight to f3 was a little bit premature by that, because here bishop caps on f5 was much better, because if you go for this e captures and c captures, now you can see that you have captured. You're going to push this, and here just develop this knight castle. But the issue with this position is that you get this h4, and now I think the pawns are a bit too advanced, because here once you play this bishop to d2, not allowing any queen checks, now you play this f4, just attacking the queen. And once the queen moves queen to d3, now you play g5. Now these pawns are a bit too advanced, and black doesn't need to castle. Black can keep the king in the center, just get those pieces in, and it's going to be a little bit troublesome for white. So I think that was the position that Tal was trying to avoid, because here c captures, you have this knight to f3, not worrying about that pawn that much, and we have this knight to c6, g4, and the pawn is still hanging. I mean, no one is doing anything about it. Here just knight up to e7, just getting the knight back, not trading obviously because the rook would fall. And here just g captures on h5, just finally getting that pawn eliminated. And if you're wondering about why not c caps on d4, well, because queen to a5 check. And now after king to d1, now you go for this knight to b4 idea. And once you move that to bishop to d2, you get this knight caps on d3. Because now, unfortunately, you cannot capture. If you capture, then you get this fork, and you're just in a completely losing position. So obviously, you have to be careful about such tactics, because now after you capture this, c caps on d3, bishop caps, queen captures on e4 with a check. I apologize, queen to a4 with a check, and after king to e2, now you play this b6. And now the bishops are going to be joined in, and there's going to be an attack on this pawn. You're going to have to move this knight, and it's going to get very troublesome. So here, not going into those complications. So here, after knight up to e7, we just play g caps on h5. And here, just Tigran Petrosian just goes for this queen to c7, just developing it, and maybe you'll just fiend get to this bishop, and maybe you'll castle queen side, but it could be something else. It just bishop to f4 was played, but now just knight to g6, attacking the bishop, and just queen to g4, just defending it. And we have this knight captures, queen captures, and just decaps on c3. Finally, just grabbing that pawn and asking Tal, what are you going to do about it? And Tal goes for queen to g5. And in this position, black is the one that's definitely better, because you have hung that pawn a bit too much, and now the black has captured it. You have a king in the same middle of the board, a queen which is on g5. I mean, Tal loved to play these kinds of position where the pieces were scattered all across the board, and he was able to get a sacrifice in. So definitely, that would definitely help. So here, queen to e7 was played, but now just queen caps on g7, attacking the rook. Queen to f8, queen to g5, and just queen to h6, asking for a queen trade. If you trade queens, you're in a much worse situation, and you're going to definitely be losing the game. So definitely, you should not consider that. Here, just rook to g1, and now queen captures, rook captures. Now this is a bit different, because now you've gotten the rook in with a tempo, and now once the king moves, you'll be able to double the rooks, and you'll have a pass pawn. So it's definitely going to be different. But here, just bishop to d7 is going as planned, and we have king to e2, just king to e7, just connecting rooks both places, and we have this king to e3. Now rook a f8, but rook a g1, and now bishop back to e8. Now this bishop to e8 is a very nice defensive resource, because when you're going to push these pawn, you'll always have an eye. Sorry, not there. You'll always have an eye on this pawn, and you're going to have to be careful about that, because if that pass pawn is eliminated. There is not much counterplay for white in this position. Here, knight to d4, just asking Petrosian if you want to trade those knights. We have just f5, and we have this knight caps on c6, bishop caps on c6. You don't get much on n+1. I mean, even if you try to do anything about it, there is just nothing you can do, because you can just capture it with the king, or you can just even capture it with the rook, and there is nothing in this position. White will double up here, and just gobble up these pawns, and it's going to be very difficult to defend. So here, just knight caps on c6 was played with check, and we have this bishop caps on c6. And here, this bishop caps on c6, I told you that bishop was very much important being there on e8. It was helping as a very nice defensive resource, and now you can see that the bar has shot up. And the reason for the bar shooting up is the best move here was just b caps on c6. Now after rook to b1, the rook is definitely going to join in the party. You have a very nice defensive resource, which is this rook f to g8. And here, after rook captures, now you play this king to d4, because the king is definitely going to come up and try to annoy these pawns. And here, after a5, now you play this rook to b7 check, king moves h6, and now here rook to h8, but now just h7. Now you might be thinking, how do you eliminate that pawn? Simple, you just block it. Now after bishop to f7, rook to b8 check, obviously you don't want to go anywhere near that, but what you want to do is just play the bishop here again. And after king caps on c3, now you play this rook caps on h7, king to d4, rook caps on h2. Now it might seem like it's a completely losing position, but in the position of worthlessness, this is the only position that gives you any sort of worth and any sort of playing chances. But here, after bishop caps on c6, now it's a different story, because here king to d4, and now that king is coming in, you're gonna have to play it back, and it's just not gonna be good. Here f4 was tried, but now just rook to g7 check, king rook to f7, and now rook to g8. And now if you trade one pair of rooks, it's gonna be very much difficult, because here rook captures, and now you get this rook to f8. But now after rook captures, king captures, now you can see that this pawn is promoting, and how are you going to stop it? Because here h6, now b6, but now just king caps on c3. White is going to grab this pawn as well, because you cannot defend it, and this bishop is going to be locked up in here in this cage, and you can do nothing about it. King to g8, but now just bishop to g6, and here a5, king to d4, king to f8, and now just c3. And now here king to g8, h7 check, and now we have this king to g7. And here, after bishop to f7, if you capture, I mean, obviously you're going to be queening, so definitely not something you want to do, but just bishop to d7. And here, after bishop to g8, now you play this bishop to c8, king to d3, bishop to d7, king to e2, king to h8. Slowly but surely, you're going to go after this pawn, and just push this pawn, and this is just impossible to stop. King to f3, b5, but now just here going for king caps on f4, we have d4. Obviously, if you trade here, black is going to push, and you might seem like black is a little bit faster, but you have to calculate again, because here after c captures, now you play this a obviously b4. Now after a captures, a4, and now you have this very nice defensive resource with d5. D5 works simply because of the fact that you cannot capture. If you capture, then this comes, and you're going to lose that. And obviously, after all of this, you're also guarding the a2 square. So here just a3, but now just d captures on c6. And after a2, forcing queen, but now just e captures on d7, and a1 queen. And black has gotten a queen faster than white. So is he going to be able to defend? The answer is absolutely no. Just look at all these pawns. I mean, one is about to queen, and you have four more pawns, five more pawns, and one is about to two are about to queen. d8 queen, queen to c1 check, king to c5, queen to b1 check, king to e6, queen to g6 check, and king to d7 was played. But it was also on this move, on move 51, that Tigran Petrosian resigned the game, and Tal got this spectacular victory in 1957, where he was considered the underrated among the top elites, and he was able to get the spectacular victory. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'm sure you thoroughly enjoyed this game. I did too. I mean, this is an absolutely amazing learning opportunity to enjoy these end games, because the games of the past definitely teaches you a lot better than games today. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back with such games, so stay tuned for that, and I'll be seeing you guys very, very soon. Thank you all.